Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Kevin, or Minis by Kev, and I'm a miniaturist living in New England. I have a cat eating in the background, so if you can hear a little chewing, that's the cat. I cannot get him to stop. If you watch any of my previous videos, you may know that when I try to do a technique in miniature I've never done before, I try to do it in like a smaller way, and usually that means I do it in a shadow box because I really like the shadow boxes from Michaels. You can get like really good deals on them. But this week I decided to do something different. I wanted to try making a fancier floor. I've done floors made out of popsicles before, popsicle sticks, not popsicles. Imagine a floor made out of popsicles. Anyway, I made floors out of popsicle sticks before, usually in like a herringbone pattern, and that is very difficult. But I wanted to try something a little different, something that I've never done before, and try like a pattern that I haven't. I really like, I think it's parquet floors, parquet. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's a French word. I'll put it up on screen. And I really like how they look. And I know that there's like a lot of different designs you can do, and I just love the way they look. Something so mundane as a floor that has like a beautiful art pattern in it that I really love. So I want to try to create it in miniature, something that wasn't herringbone. Because again, I've done herringbone, but I want to try something a little different. And so what I ended up settling on was the basket weave parquet flooring. Editing Kevin jumping in here to say, first of all, what a terrible picture. What a terrible screen grab. Yeah, revel in that. But I looked it up, and this is also called the mosaic pattern, the basket weave pattern. I'm not sure if there's an official name for this pattern, but I saw lots of different ones online. So just wanted to come in here and let you know that I don't know if I said this correctly. I don't know if it's the basket weave or the mosaic or something else entirely. Which is like 4 and 4 planks stacked side by side across the whole room. You'll see what I mean because we're about to start the video. So you'll see what I mean. I want to try and use this technique in a larger scale later, but I need to try it small to see if I can do it effectively. So let's go ahead and turn this camera around. Hopefully my cat will stop eating and we'll get started. Starting off with the best cereal flavor ever. Yes, I'm only 33, but I've been eating this since I was young. My mom really liked this cereal, so I've been eating it since I was a kid, and I love it. Don't come for me with the grape nut flake hate. We're moving on. I needed this to be on a piece of chipboard or the equivalent chipboard, which is why I'm using this, because I like to use recycled materials when I can in miniatures. So I needed to put this on a piece of chipboard-like material because in the past, I have built something directly into a room box, and in other times, I have done it outside of it. It is difficult to put it into a room box after you've created it in my experience, but I think that might be because my room was warped. Long story. Anyway, I wanted to have this outside of a room box so that way I could put it into something later and I wasn't constrained to a certain size room box. Although, you could say I'm constrained to a certain size of this chipboard. Yeah, you could definitely say that. I cut off the edges because I only needed one part of this, and that was that. After I was done with the right shape, I pulled out all of these popsicle sticks, and I quickly realized that a popsicle sticks was not the move because what I actually needed was a smaller inch-by-inch ratio. The popsicle sticks would have been too large, so even though you can see me working with popsicle sticks here, I quickly stopped that because the coffee stir sticks were just a better dimension length. They just looked better, and to do 1 inch by 1 inch, I needed to have a smaller width plank. Hope you understood what I meant there. Oops, how did this tongue depressor one get there? How embarrassing. I decided to make a practice 4 patch, which is something I should have done with the popsicle sticks before I cut a bunch of them, just so I could see what it would look like to make sure it looked how I wanted it to. And as you can see me here, trying to get them to stick together, and then I completely lost my mind here because I could not get them to not move around. One thing I needed to make sure that I could do is make sure that all the planks were 1 inch long, which you can see me here sanding them to try and get that 1/32 inch off these so that way they were all 1 inch, and I really thought that I got them all down to 1 inch. Here's some foreshadowing for you. That's gonna come back up. I would be lying to you if I said that this project was easy, that it went smoothly, because anything that could go wrong did go wrong. As you can see here, I spent the time measuring this stir stick out before it just snapped because it was too weak. You could see where it was fused together and it just broke in half. But once I had a good stick, it was cut, planks, just cutting more planks and cutting more planks, and then measuring them to make sure that they were the right size. They all needed to be 1 inch, so I had to then sandpaper some to make sure they were the right size, and then I had to measure some more planks and measure some more planks and cut some more planks and cut some more planks. As you can tell, by this point in the process, I felt like I was starting to go insane. At first, I was measuring out each individual stir stick and then cutting the stir stick and then measuring the stir stick to make sure the planks were the right size, but then I kind of fell into this groove of measuring a bunch, cutting a bunch, and then checking the length of each one. This just seemed to make it go by quicker, and it was less tedious than having to switch the process of what I was doing in the moment over and over and over again. Because, again, you start to feel like you're losing your mind after a while. And believe me, this was only a few of the 200 plus planks I had to make. I'm not going to bore you and make you watch me make all 200 plus of these, but just know that there was more measuring, more cutting, more measuring, more cutting, after what I just showed you. And it probably lasted like 8 to 10 hours. And I wish I was exaggerating when I say that, but it really took me 8 to 10 hours. It was at this point I made a decision. So in the past, I've only made room boxes that were the elongated normal room box shape that you see. And I decided that I wanted to try something different. This was like originally 7.5 by like 10.5. And I wanted to make it smaller. And it totally didn't have anything to do with the fact that it was gonna cut out like 50 plus planks I had to make, you know? I just wanted to try something new. So I cut it down to be about 7.5 by 7.5, I think that's what it ends up being. Nope, can't be 7.5, probably 7 by 7, because the half would mean cutting some planks in half. So I think it ends up being about 7 by 7 in the end, and I just thought, you know, I do genuinely believe that a square shape is a little more interesting, because I always make rectangle shaped room boxes, but also, it did save me hours and hours of work. Once I had the hundreds and hundreds of floorboards done, I wanted to practice putting these together to see what the design would look like, but let me tell you, these do not want to stay in place when they're not glued down. They're so tiny, so finicky, that I kind of just had to start gluing stuff down. I just had to just do it. Just do it. Not trademarked. Here's an idea of what the pattern was going to look like once it was all glued and put in. In a perfect world, this is what it would look like. This is not a perfect world, and I'm not a perfect person. And this ends up not being a perfect floor. I end up using my 1, 2, 3 blocks to make a perfect 90-degree angle in this corner, so that way when I started putting in the flooring, it would be perfect, at least on one edge. I knew that if the edge looked bad on the other side, or if it looked kind of wobbly, it wouldn't matter because it would be in the back of whatever I'm doing with this. But for the front part, that front that's going to be seen the most, I wanted it to be as straight as possible. So I used the 1, 2, 3 blocks to make a 90-degree angle. I wish I could tell you that this part of the process is easier, but laying down all these planks took a lot of time. And as you can see here, there was a lot of planks. I think I ended up laying down over 200, and it was one of those things where you start to feel like you're going crazy. You just, this whole project kind of was like a lesson in madness in just doing the same thing over and over again and seeing if at some point you'll break. But I did enjoy it, don't get me wrong. This was therapeutic in its own way, but you know, after a while of laying plank after plank after plank, you start to think, what am I doing? Am I planking? What? I don't even know if that makes sense. See, the voiceover doesn't even make any sense anymore because I've lost my mind doing this planking. So if you want to do something similar to this, do it. It's worth it, it looks good in the end, but just be aware that this will take you a long time. This is just laying down plank after plank after plank, and it may take you 10 to 15 hours to do a 7 by 7 inch area. So be prepared, be ready, but just know it's not the end of the world. It's not horrible, but it is incredibly, incredibly time consuming. I always say that's that on that, but that's that on that. Here's the floor. Unfortunately, I was going to stain it, and then I realized that the stain takes 6 hours for the first coat to dry, and then another 6 hours for the second coat to dry. So I could not stain this for this video because, spoiler alert, it's not really a spoiler, we're at the end of the video. If you want to try this technique, it took me an incredibly long time. This is a 7 inch by 7 inch floor. This took me probably 12 to 15 hours of working on it to get to this point. And some people may say, that's not worth it. I don't know, I really like it. I think it's worth it, but you have to really be committed to this look and the amount of time it takes to complete this. I'm not exaggerating. It takes a lot of time to cut them, and I would do this again in the right circumstance. I'm not sure what that circumstance is, but I think I would do it again. I wish I could see what it looked like. It does look kind of nice when it's like kind of shiny in the light. I don't know, I think that looks kind of cool. But I wish I could have tried staining this just to see what it looks like in the actual color I wanted to. I've never used this before. I literally went out and bought it today thinking that it would dry in a couple hours because I thought this is one of those ones that dries in an hour. Turns out it's not, and I didn't realize until 10 p.m. the night before this video needs to go up. So that's not happening, and it is what it is. We will, maybe I'll do it in my next, I'll stain this in the meantime, and then at the end of my next video next week, I'll show it or something. I don't know. Now I'm afraid to ruin it because I do really like how it turned out. I like the shininess. I wondered why I would say the things I liked and disliked about the project I worked on, because I feel like not everyone does that in their videos, but I realized it's because one of my favorite channels is Rachel Maxey, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but she always talks about like what the pros and cons of the videos, and I like that because it also shows that like this may look, like if you look at this, it may look perfect to some people, but there are some little gaps in here, and the edges are kind of crooked. And so I just feel like it's nice to talk about the things you liked and you disliked, because also if somebody else is trying this, somebody watches this video wants to try this, they can maybe learn from my mistakes. So, pros and cons. I do really like how it turned out. I do like it. I like the variation in wood colors, although I don't know how that's gonna show up when I stain it, but I do really like the variation. I love the way it looks. I just think it looks cool. It does look like a basket weave. I think this is the basket weave. Now that I'm saying it, I feel like, watch me be wrong, but I do really like the way it looks. The cons are, even though I measured and cut and then measured again to make sure they were all 1 inch exactly, they're not. Because part of the issue is if you even get 1/32 of an inch off on multiple, that builds up. So by the time you get to the end of a row, you might be off 1/4 of an inch, which it builds up very quickly. And that happened multiple times. And in fact, there are some parts where it's not perfectly lined up. One of my other hobbies is I do like to make quilts, and I noticed that this is very similar, that like some of the corners are perfect and some are not. And that's just, it's off right here. So it's just kind of, it is what it is. But if you're gonna try and recreate something similar to this, if you wanna do this kind of pattern or this kind of technique, you have to be really careful to try and make sure that the wood boards are exactly the same size. Overall, I do really like it. There are pros and cons to this, obviously, but I think that it is a really beautiful floor. And to be honest, even though there are some gaps and they don't line up perfectly, if this was in a dollhouse or a diorama or whatever you may want to put this into, you would not notice that. Especially once you put furniture on it and have walls and all that jazz. Speaking of which, another reason why I don't mind this being jagged is I think I keep having jagged little pills stuck in my head every time I say jagged. If I'm planning on putting baseboards, I plan on putting baseboards on this, and because I actually think I'm gonna make a little tiny diorama room box for this flooring. If you've watched my previous video where I made the fancy Kermit the Frog painting and the wainscoting in that, I think I'm gonna do that similar wainscoting, and I'm gonna make a room box. First I only wanted to do 3 walls, but I think I might actually do a ceiling for once, because I've never made a room box with a ceiling before, and I think that I want to do like wainscoting, make it like a little fancy room, but I'm not 100% sold on that. But I do think I'm gonna do that with this, because I like the way this looks, and I don't want to just have it, you know, floating around. I want to actually do something with it. Yeah, this is gonna go into like a little room box. If you have any ideas of what I could do with this, let me know in the comments, because I think I'm gonna do like a little fancy room, maybe like some nice like ornate bookshelves or something, which I've also done in the past. Maybe I can take all the techniques I've been working on recently and kind of compile them into the same video. I think I'm gonna do that. If you have any suggestions, any ideas, please comment below, let me know, and we'll see. It's not gonna be next week's video, because I'm finally gonna do the project that I've been putting off because it's been too cold. Because this also, you have to use in certain temperatures, which I did not know originally. It has to be like within like 60 to something degrees or something. I'll have to read it again, but next week's project's gonna be one that I've been wanting to make for like over a month. I've been putting it off because of that. So I will be working on that next. And then I think I'll work on the room box for this. So that way it gives people like a week or two to watch the video and let me know if they have any ideas. I'm pretty sure I wanna go with the wainscoting idea. Even if it doesn't end up being like a super fancy room, I do like making wainscoting. That's that. That's all for this week. If you like me or you like miniatures, make sure you hit the subscribe button below and the like button below, because it really helps my video. And I will see you all in my next video. Goodbye. What was that? Okay, in case you were unaware, it's incredibly difficult to try and record with a ring light when you wear glasses. I'm just giving it a second. He's kicking around in the litter box. First he's gotta eat, so he's gotta poop. That's alfalfa.